Thanks for staying with us. Now, Uzoma Doze is one of Nigeria's leaders in the financial sector and the last group managing director of Diamond Bank Nigeria. He is the founder of Sparkle, a mobile-first platform for Nigeria's retail sector using technology to power financial inclusion at scale. At Diamond Bank, Uzoma was responsible for overseeing the corporate and commercial arms of the bank. He holds a BSc in Chemistry, University of Reading, and an MSc in Chemical Research, UCL, and an MBA from Imperial College London. Uzoma runs angel investment and mentorship platforms, that's Black Knight, and also tech-focused TV Tech Talks, where he interviews leading entrepreneurs and digital pioneers. So our focus today is to know the man behind these many hats as we attempt to define success, anchoring on his journey. So you can join this conversation. Tweet at us at WaysHowAfrica1 with the hashtag WaysShow, or send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I've never seen a phone CEO. But you know what? Before I bring in Uzoma Doze, quickly, Temi and Uti and Isi, if you had one thing to describe Uzoma Doze, what would that be? Let me come to Temi first.
I think he's fly. I think he's very fly. He's the fly CEO. Because I remember, I have 3 friends that were really senior officers in Diamond Bank, and one of them told me that he said they needed to undress the dress code. I thought that was really cool.
Correct. Okay, he's fly. Uti, do you agree? What's your word?
Well, I'm just going to say, I'm just a simple phrase, all black everything.
In fact, interestingly, Uti, I had worn an all black dress. I said, no, but it's too typical. I mean, that's very, very typical of Uzoma Doze, so I'm not going to wear black. I will mix it with a little bit of blue. How about you, Isi?
Also, he's charming.
Oh, okay. I want chamas. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Uzoma Doze.
Thank you for having me.
You know what? So because we posted the flyer that we're going to be hosting our CEO for the month of January, and in fact, nobody can avoid this question because that's the biggest elephant in the room. And, I think that a lot of people are not open to change. A lot of people, they get glued to something and they're very comfortable. But you're not that kind of CEO, because everybody on earth said, what was he thinking? Letting go of Diamond Bank. And that has been the thing that's been in our heads, drumming up and all of that. So maybe you want to start from there.
Let's get the elephant out of the room.
Yes,
so we
please.
can have a frank discussion. So I mean, it's very, very simple. To do that, you would have had taken into consideration all the stakeholders. And for us at Diamond Bank started as a family organization. And my father, when he started it, all he wanted to make sure was all the stakeholders were looked after during and after. And in taking that decision, we actually looked at all the stakeholders involved. The first one was always the customer, because the customer is the ones that actually made us. The second are the people. In fact, they were all people, the staff, and also regulators as well, because we're in an environment. And when I look at it, so what did we want to do? Looking at knowing where the world was going to, we wanted to create a bigger platform. We wanted to take the best of retail and the best of corporate and create a platform that we would say that would outlive individuals. And I think we did that by creating the biggest bank based on customers. And you could hear in the news a few days ago what they're doing and what they plan to do. So that still lives on. From a staff perspective, which is actually the big problem, one of the promises that we made, and believe me, we went around the country, one of the promises that we made was that there was a place for every single person in the new entity. We were taking the best, and nobody was laid off. This was not one of those Western world mergers where you say we're merging and we're looking for efficiencies. We said nobody's going to get laid off. We're going to look at the data, and we're not even closing any branches, which we could have done because we had a lot of duplications, and we did that. And from an investor perspective, they got a good payday, and so I even had a call. I mean, of course, these things are very, it's like a marriage. These things are very, very traumatic because they are life-changing. And,
exactly.
you know, 2 years later, speak to any investor and ask them if they are sad about the investment. So, I mean, like, you know, you can't please everyone, but you look at the core people, the core stakeholders, and the core people here are the customers, and they're happy. I know a lot of people are not going to be happy because people don't like change. Nigeria is the place where we don't like change. But, you know, I look at the last 12 months, and so I can bet you that everyone's plans on 1st of January of what they were going to do in 2020 was completely wrong. And they're completely wrong now. And if you ask anybody today, what are you doing in 2021? They don't know. So we're now in a world of change. And when we think, and like, if you, and I can say that the new entity is much stronger. So you need a stronger platform during volatile time. It's like a storm. And so small ships sink, bigger ships float. And so in 2021, I can tell you that the new entity is a bigger ship, and the probability of survival is going to be bigger. And and that's the most important thing. You have to take care of the bigger numbers and not people. And people, life is not perfect, and that's why life is exciting, because people always have, you're going to have voices that are completely different.
Absolutely. Then you come to Isi, then I'll come to Uti.
Okay, so as a CEO, what is your greatest strength as a CEO, as a leader? What's your greatest strength?
I think the greatest strength is actually letting go, trusting people, because, I mean, like, you are paying, well, let me find a better word. You're paying a lot of money to hire people to run businesses. And then you have to let go, let them do their stuff, let them trust people. And so, like, letting go and trusting that they'll do their job. And if they don't, having the courage, right, to say, all right, I'm sorry, give you a chance, you have to go. Because in the end, I mean, when you're running a big enterprise or when you're running a small enterprise, you can't do everything by yourself because it is not sustainable. So there are many hats you have to wear. You have to wear, you know, the hat that says no all the time. You have to wear the hat that encourages. You have to wear the hat that is very, very aggressive. So it's knowing also when to wear the different hats.
Absolutely. Let me come to Uti. Elu.
Hi, Uzoma. So,
hi, Uti. Happy New
I
Year's.
enjoyed the show. I'm good, thank you. Good to see you. It's been a while. I would like to ask. Our quote today talked about failure. And when I look at recently, Elon Musk has overtaken as the richest man in the world. And you have to sort of think about his story and the way failure has impacted him. So I would like to ask you what your biggest failure has been and how has that gotten Uzoma to where he is today as the chief sparkler?
Very interesting question. Nobody asked me that. I mean, like, every time I think I've had a big failure, I get, I mean, like, you know, I mean, like, my biggest failure, I think, for me, failure is part of a journey. So I don't see failure as failure is when you don't actually take lessons from the event. Now, you know, I think I did a blog like a few weeks ago where I talked about, like, I was rambling and I was talking about failure. And when I was doing a master's, I spent a year in a lab, and I think I did about an experiment every day, so like over 200 experiments, and 90% of them failed. Only a few passed, but I still got my master's degree, and that was because I failed the experiment. I recorded it. I captured the learnings so that other people would not fail.
Make the same mistake.
Would make the same mistake. So my biggest failure would be not recording events, right? The things that have happened that, you know, why didn't I record that? Because if I don't record that, that means somebody else is going to actually fall into that trap. So I think that's where failure is. And in our society, we see failure as a stigma. And I think we need to change that mindset. I think it's testing. And so, at Sparkle today, one of the things we want to do is test a lot. We test some things. The biggest failure is just saying, you know, I'm going to throw all my resources
You can only be testing when there's money to test, because
Yeah,
if you are in a if you have a very tight economy, sometimes you really cannot afford to make certain kinds of errors because it might be too expensive for you to be able to test.
But I totally agree with you. But sometimes I think it's people just wake up in the morning and just throw all their resources into without actually testing. Now, testing, it means, I mean, testing is so like I have #1 million, and I think that this is something I want to do, right? I would take 100 or 200,000 naira and test, and if it fails, because you have to actually incorporate that into that whole process. You can't just make it. That's gambling, right? Without actually testing to find out if the market, if it has market acceptability. And you find that in other structured organizations, first of all, they do a lot of testing, and I believe that's what they call research. You know, they call it research. They call it, a green site testing, and that's because you go to a location, test tube. So like it's like being in a lab. You say, okay, you know what? I think this might work. Let's go and test. Let's have focus groups, and let's do that. And let's not bet all our money on that. And like, I've read a few books on entrepreneurship and going startups, and say there are rules to this. You don't just wake up and just say, I think this is right, and I'm going to do it. No, it's like, okay, this is my resources, right? I must test it. And then you also incorporate failures into it. And the people that do it best are actually banks. So banks say, you know what, I'm going to lend XYZ to this community, this segment of people. The risk of people who are not going to pay me back about 20%, and they actually factor it into the pricing. And that's failure. They've actually done that, but they don't see that as failure. But it is actually saying,
they call it risk taking.
Risk taking,
absolutely.
Right? And you must take risk you must take risk to make return. There's nothing in life, right? That if you don't play, you don't win.
Absolutely. Okay, let me come to Temi.
Hi, Uzoma.
Hi, Temi.
So just talking about leadership, leadership as a skill, as a competency now, just to touch on that, So to my mind, Diamond Bank was an institution of many firsts. I remember your digital banking app was released and it was up there in terms of, user experience and functionality. I also, worked in SME banking some 10 years ago. And I know that Diamond Bank was one of the banks that essentially heralded SME finance as we know it today in the industry. Because doing competitor research and analysis, we always had to look at Diamond, So what was it like being the CEO, sitting in a room with your people and galvanizing them into action to champion new initiatives? Because I recognize that while some of those initiatives were, successful and groundbreaking in the industry, there must have been many failures as well. So how did you manage the failures? How did you buy their trust? How did you manage to get them working on something new, especially after, previous strategy didn't pan out?
Well, I think I was fortunate. That's a great question. I think I was fortunate because I'd been in Diamond Bank for a while and I wasn't like from the ground up. So a lot of people knew me. But I think it's also being able to sell. You have to sell, and you have to be able to garner trust, and you have to you have to lead from the front. I always say one of my role models, most of them are actually dead, is like Alexander the Great. And you will see that, how can such a small nation conquer half of the world? And that's because he led from the front, right? And that's because, he knew everybody that he worked with and that he was able to, create a bond. Now, and to do that, you have to really put yourself in the role and want to do it for them. For me, I think one thing that I was very passionate about was retail, because I think that it is a place where you can impact lives, and it's a place where and those are the returns that you can get. And so it was an easy sell for me. And I think as a leader, you have to be able to see the future. So not from that jazz perspective, but being able to picture yourself in the future and saying, okay, how is the world going to be in 5 years' time if I do this, and how are people going to use my solutions? And to tell you the truth, I wanted a mobile app that I could use outside banking. I went to the mobile app.
You made us fall in love with
Yeah,
mobile app.
yeah. I went to no,
abandoned us halfway.
The truth about banking, the truth about banking is that, and this is my personal perspective, and I'm sure I'm going to get a flag, is that banking doesn't need human beings there. And so I wanted, because the whole idea of, I think, one of our values is freedom, right? Freedom to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. And the only way to do it is actually being in control of your life. And that's why, that's when people ask me, why do you like technology and why do you like digital? Because it allows you to be an effective leader. It allows you to lead without actually, what's that word again? I can't remember it because I don't do it anymore. I don't have to do it anymore without actually looking at what everybody is doing, because you can do it and ask questions. And so it was also creating an enabling environment to test and to fail. And once you can do that, and once you can tell people, like, we're going to test it, and if it doesn't work, we'll try it. It's not cast in stone. And it's a lot of communication, and I think that's what we were able to achieve. And that's why, we were, and like, it was difficult at times too, because you also, don't forget, you also have people who have done banking from a commercial perspective. And now you're telling people, let's do it the retail way. And the retail way is actually taking bigger risks, because you're saying, I'm going to lend to these millions of people, and I'm not going to be looking at each credit. I'm actually going to look at it from a very portfolio perspective.
Okay.
Very difficult for people to change that mindset. But once you started doing it, and once you start seeing the positive numbers, and you start communicating that, then people buy into it. I mean, we did some very interesting firsts in Diamond Bank. I mean, I remember when I think I woke up one day and said, you know what? Okay, from I think it was from the 16th of February, we're not going to use checks in Diamond Bank in the banking hall. We're not going to use. I can't remember. We're not going to go to the banking hall as staff, and so we're going to use mobile, because you can't be preaching mobile and then when the system is down, you go to the banking hall. So we're actually going to live the journey of those customers. We have said, we have a mobile app, use it. So when the mobile app is down, you two are down, and then we will respond much quicker. And it was very successful. And initially it was, I mean, how can we live without checks? How can we live without paper? 6 months later, nobody cares about it. People begin to see it as an intrusion in their life. So people don't like change, but when you create an environment where things are changing and you have leadership that is actually walking the talk, then it's so much easier to actually succeed.
Okay, so we're going to go on a break. Yeah. Because you see, this thing you talked about, environment. So for me, I think, do you think that you created, how do I put it now, an independent, or how do I put it? You know how you are shielding your staff to the point that they get so comfortable. So your style of leadership, because you are a very big risk taker. I can see you are the one that will go for bungee jumping and all of those kind of things. You seem to me like somebody that you can just get up and take a decision and just go. But in that your style, you've also been able to house people in a way that they are so comfortable around you. But when you are now taking your decision, you just and you go. So all those people that you have created. So do you think that style of leadership, it's effective in actually building independent minds within an organization where they can say, you know what, I think I'll just do 2 years here and I go. But you're going to answer that after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.